Well, a friend of ours here at ABC Sth East is Dr Denis Muller. He's a researcher with the University of Melbourne's Centre for Advancing Journalism. He was once assistant editor of Fairfax newspaper, the Sydney Morning Herald. And he says he hopes the sale of Nine's newspaper assets ends the uncertainty surrounding regional publications. Dr Muller is speaking here with ABC Sth East's Claire Wheaton.
Well, my first reaction was that it ends one question of uncertainty around the future of these papers. We didn't know what Nine were going to do with them, except we knew they were going to sell them right from the start. But whether they're going to sell them off one by one or in little batches or as a job lot, which is what they have done, and to whom, and it turns out they've sold them to a guy called Anthony Catalano, who, when I was on The Age, was a police rounds reporter, and has since gone on to make a great success of the domain.com online real estate part of the old Fairfax company. So he's runs on the board as a executive of media companies. He tried to buy the whole Fairfax outfit with a last-ditch bid before the thing with Nine was sealed. But now the questions start to come thick and fast. Firstly, what's he going to do about local news content? Is he going to increase the amount of syndicated content, so you've got, some sort of common core of stuff right across a lot of the regional papers at the expense of local content? Or is he going to try and maintain local newsrooms? Will there be any staff redundancies? According to the Sydney Morning Herald, part of the sales pitch from Nine to potential buyers was that there were $8 million worth of cuts to be made. Will he make them? If he does, will that mean redundancies for journalists? Will the local papers be able to continue to cover the local courts, local councils? Will he be investing? At some point, you've got to stop the cutting. Cutting ends in death, which is what we saw with Fairfax. So, will he invest?
What do you make of the price tag that Catalano and co paid and the value it places on regional journalism?
Well, someone else told me today that it values the mastheads at an average of about $660,000, which sounds very low. But that's the reality these days, and it's not about the value of local journalism, it's about the value of newspapers as an asset in a climate where their advertising is going off to social media and where their capacity to grow their revenue is pretty limited. So it isn't surprising. And when there was a hedge fund circling around Fairfax last year, before Nine bought it, and they valued the three big mastheads, The Age, the Sydney Morning Herald and the Financial Review, collectively at $17.8 million. So that's about $6 million per masthead. That's extraordinary when you think about the value of those assets before social media came along. So I think it's just a reflection of market realities.
And you talk about assets. Obviously, some of the papers that will be affected are in the Sth East, being the Bega District News, Bay Post, etc. How important is it for these types of papers to continue in investing in local journalism for communities in this area?
It's vitally important, because without them, we don't know what the people in power in our communities are doing. We don't know what's going on in the courts. We don't know what the police are doing. We don't know what the local council is doing. We're relying in a lot of cases on the websites of these organisations. Websites are propaganda platforms. They're not journalism. And if we haven't got at least one or two reporters who are able to go to council meetings or attend court hearings and so on, we haven't any idea. In some places, they are doing a sort of a weekly summary of court cases, but no reporting of the proceedings. They're relying on the council websites for council decisions, but no reports on the debates. What are the local members of parliament doing? Are they being held to account? So it's a huge deficit for local communities, and that's before you even start to think about stories about the local community, what they're doing, what are ordinary people doing, what are the sporting clubs doing, and so on. So, yeah, it's a huge risk.
And obviously a period of uncertainty now over the next few months. I think it was July they'd put down for the sale to be negotiated.
The end of June,
June.
Into the financial year.
And so would you be hoping to see an announcement around jobs or strategy or plan kind of coming out sooner rather than later?
I would hope so. I mean, the new owners, Catalano and an outfit called Thorney Investments, you would think must have some plans in the pipeline. So it would be good to know what they were. Particularly, are they going to have any sort of consolidation of newsrooms? If we took the Sth East, for instance, would they concentrate the Sth East newsroom in, say, Bateman's Bay or Cooma, and then try to cover the smaller communities from those places at a distance? That's one option. That'd be a problem, I think, because covering Bega from Bateman's Bay is a problem. Covering the rumour from Bateman's Bay is a problem. So we just have to wait and see what they're going to do. I would certainly expect to see some sort of strategic decisions by the end of the financial year, by June, certainly, yeah.
And just lastly, what do you make of Catalano's background, being, he's well known for the spin-off of Domain?
Well, he's been successful at a very difficult time. I mean, it wasn't obvious that Domain could work because none of the other efforts by Fairfax to retain their market share over advertising on, for example, jobs or motor cars, none of that worked. He made the real estate thing work. So he's got that to his credit. He is actually a journalist originally. And so one can only hope that he hasn't lost his journalistic credentials or instincts entirely, and that he will, at some point, start to invest in the journalism, because in the end, that's all you've got to sell.
Dr Denis Muller, a researcher with the University of Melbourne Centre for Advancing Journalism, talking about local newspapers and the new owner of most of the newspapers around the Sth East, Anthony Catalano.